Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
Anything else you have for us? Anything else that we didn't touch on that you had floating around thinking about?
I do want to make an offer to your podcast listeners. For anyone that's listening to the episode, you can obviously schedule a introductory strategy call with me for free. But whenever you purchase the course, you can use a code is Wrestling Philosophy, all lowercase, and you'll get $100 off of the program. And that's a special offer that you can only get through the Wrestling Philosophy with the Wrestling Philosophy code. And so it's a special offer there to your listeners.
Oh, wow, thanks. We appreciate it. And I'll be sure to communicate that, put it out to the listeners, and obviously share this. All right, welcome, Coach Marinelli, Olentangy Liberty. How you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I've watched some of the shows. I really enjoy it, and I like what you're doing, and it's great for wrestling. So thanks for doing it.
No, thanks. Thanks for kind words. It's I've been wanting you on. I mentioned Bracken's been I don't know how many times get him on. I know, and trying to go down the list of people. Obviously you're at the top, but I was hoping you'd say yes. You're pretty quiet, kind of reserved guy. So I was hoping you'd say yes. You'd be surprised some of the guys that don't want to jump on. I'm like, I think everyone has a story to tell. So I'm glad you're here and looking forward to hearing your story. So I guess kick it off, like let our listeners know kind of your background and how you got in the sport and where you're at.
So my background, I come from a large family. I have 6 brothers and 3 sisters, and quite a few of them wrestled. So my brother,
where do you
Chris,
fall in line?
I'm 8. I'm 8 young. Well, I got 2 younger brothers. My
Okay.
brother Mario is a 2-time state champ, and then my brother Chris is a state qualifier at Northland High School. And so he kind of got me into it a little bit. I don't know, maybe when I was 10 or 12. I didn't do a whole lot of youth wrestling, but I went over to Desales and started working out there. And I had 2 really good coaches. One was Izzy Volpe, and the other one was Pat Fickle. So that was Luke Fickle's dad. And they ran a really great practice with hundreds of kids in the room. So it was really a good learning experience, and it was tough too. And some of the moves I learned there, I still teach and I still do. And so I really got my start there, I would say. But also just wrestling in the family room with the brothers. If you have any brothers like you do, I'm sure you got into some scuffles, right?
That got some extra workouts, high intensity workouts, right?
Yes. So I got a really good work ethic from my parents, and my mom and dad were just great people. And my dad had the best work ethic of anyone I've ever seen. And on top of that, he was just the best Christian I've ever seen, and words and deeds. And he was really inspirational and also motivational in getting me into wrestle and taking me where I wanted to go.
Okay. And you end up state champ there, right?
Yeah, I ended up state champ. I had Dave Crindle was my high school coach. But I also had 2 other coaches that really influenced me a lot. And one was Bob Dealey. Okay, and anybody knows Bob Dealey. Yeah. And the other one was Pete Allen, Jason Allen's dad. So Pete was instrumental in helping me get going in wrestling and actually helping me achieve my goals. So those 2 guys and Dave Crindle, my high school coach, really helped me get motivated and be a good high school wrestler.
So was Ohio State then the logical choice then?
I was thinking about Indiana and Pittsburgh, and Ohio State had that choice. Then Russ came my senior year, and
really? Okay.
I ended up going to Ohio State and wrestling there and having a pretty good career too.
All right, 2-time All-American, right?
Yeah, it was really tough, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So you have any stories from those days at Ohio State?
Just it was always fun being on teams with guys who were big and bigger than life, like Coleman or Randleman. Those guys were just just bigger than life, and whenever they did something, it was really enjoyable. And I loved watching Randleman wrestle, like a lot of people did. And I missed that guy. And Coleman was just he was just a tank in the room. And those two guys I really like to watch wrestle.
Yeah.
And they were just studs, and
Yeah.
they were good to watch wrestle.
Random's from my hometown, so you hear all these stories. It's what an amazing athlete and hard worker, right? You see the athletic guy all the time, and when you pair that up with hardworking, right? I mean, pretty amazing to watch his matches back and things like that. Do you have any stories of him? Anything you remember?
I just remember, like, when he first came in, and I'd wrestle him, and I would just take him, put him away pretty easily. And then after a couple of months, he just learned really quick. And then it was to the point where I got no business even trying to wrestle that guy.
Oh wow!
So it just wasn't an option. I just like to watch him compete because he was so energetic and a great character.
Right. So, two-time All-American. At what point? How long after House State was it? Right to Desales, or what was the?
So
right back to coaching.
Yeah, actually, I taught. Actually, I coached at a middle school, Brook Park Middle School in Grove City.
Okay.
So their principal called me up, and I took the job there, and I had a 1 year, and then Desales called me and wanted me to be assistant, and then the year after that, I took the job at Desales.
Okay. Was the pro? I know, as we mentioned off air, when I wrestled, right, Desales was it, man. Right, you guys football too, right? You guys had top in the state in football, up there in wrestling. Was it like that when you took over, or what was the status of the program?
I built the program up. I had a good foundation, but I built it up, and actually, we were good in football, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I coached football for 10 years there.
Oh, did you really? Wow.
Yeah, and that really helped me build a coaching philosophy because, Bob Jacoby and Mark Crabtree. Mark Crabtree's those are Hall of Fame coaches, but Mark Crabtree was my 8th grade middle school coach in wrestling at Desales. And then Brian White was on my staff. He was a state championship coach at Hilliard-Davidson, and so was Ryan Wiggins. I think all those guys are pretty much Hall of Fame football coaches or close to it. And being around those guys and seeing how they put a team together and how they layer it and give so much care to the freshmen and the sophomores and the JVs really helped me do that. And I put a lot of emphasis, and I spent a lot of time on our lower levels, and that's why we always seem to be able to have a decent team, or at least have numbers year after year.
And it did it have feeder schools, or what was? I know Columbus is a little different, but was there feeder schools, or how did you kind of develop the young kids or get them in the door, or what was the kind of back then? Because it's different back then, right, than now, right? I mean, but go on.
We had little Stallions, and then some of the feeder schools were still, had good numbers. So we'd probably get like 80% of our youth kids in the feeder school, and then maybe 20% from outside the feeder school. So, but I didn't go. I went to Columbus Public School, and I wrestled in the Little Stallions, so it was open to pretty much anybody. Right. So, I mean, that's what generated the layering effect.
Right. Very similar to I wrestled for St. Mary's, same thing in the 80s, mid 80s through 90s, right? It was, St. Mary's youth program, but everyone was invited, and we knew kids weren't going to St. Mary's, but they were okay to come over because it gave us great training partners. You know what I mean? And so some very similar background. So I remember, watching Preston and all those guys wrestle, and any stories you have from those teams looking back? Because I'm sure when you were living in it, you probably didn't realize it, right? And then you look back and like, wow, what some of those classes, some of those athletes you had, I'm sure looking back is pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, we had some really, really good teams. Looking back, like in that, I mean, I did the best job I could, but now the way I coach, I think I probably, would have won multiple state titles there instead of just a couple runners up. But we were really consistent. And, we'd always get a late start because our team was in the football finals 4 years in a row.
Right.
And
So what was your philosophy with that? Like with the late start and pushing, because I'm sure kids were coming off injury, did you have a different philosophy on that?
no, it took me a while to adjust to that. And that's the thing. I try to push them too hard right off the football field.
Okay.
And we'd always do pretty good at Brecksville and then kind of sink down a little bit. And then I had to regroup them. And throughout of us, they were just mentally tired and physically tired. I would have been better off just not going to some of those tournaments and letting them rest for a couple weeks and then getting them fresh and back. And, I do that a little bit better now than I did then.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to get guys back in shape after, 15 weeks of football. It's tough.
Right. And I mean, nowadays too, with the elf hydration and, that's the bigger tournaments early, right? And it's a lot different than it was now, right? A lot different. But obviously now you're at Liberty, right? Some powerhouse teams as well. But I mean, as we know in Ohio, we talk all the time, how many top level teams there are in the country, right? Just in Ohio, right? And as you mentioned, you had 2 runner-up teams, at Desales, right? And you've had some, national ranked teams at Liberty. What's your coaching staff look like over there? Kind of the philosophy and chemistry, at Liberty, and how is it different than what you had at Desales?
Well, I mean, when I was a younger coach, I didn't really like conflict. I would say so. I didn't get as much input from my coaches as I do now. So on my coaching staff now, I don't want anybody who's a yes man. I want everybody that can hash out a detail or a concept with me, and to make me think about what I'm doing and why we're doing it, not just doing it. And all my coaches do that for me. It's not that they didn't do it at Desales. It's just I wasn't really open to it as much as I am now, and I realized that it really helps you getting a lot of different points of view and determining what's best for the direction of individuals in the team as well.
So who are some of the coach? I know Coach Zucker's a big piece of that. Like what, talk about the chemistry, between the coaches and what they all bring to the table.
Well, first of all, we really enjoy each other, and at the tournaments we like to play cards. So although we do hash ideals out, we do get along because all want.
You play cards? What do you guys play?
Oh, a lot of euchre.
Euchre, okay. Yep. Not as much as we used to, right? I mean, before the big break before finals, it seemed like everyone was playing euchre. Now there's you roll right into finals. There's not as much time, right?
Yeah. At my first banquet at Liberty, the seniors got up and said that we were a euchre team that occasionally wrestled.
Yep.
That was enjoyable, but it keeps us loose, and we like to have fun. So it's too easy to get tight, and the cards and the banner help keep us really loose and enjoy the situation, I should say.
Okay.
But we got Zucker on there, and at Nick Preston, 2-time All-American,
Right.
Bracken Mead, a Division I wrestler, and we have Adam Donahue, Chad Roskovich.
Chad wrestled at Ohio State, right? Did Chad wrestle at Ohio State?
Did Chad? I don't think Chad did. I'm pretty sure he didn't, but he was a couple times state placer at Bridgeport.
Okay.
And we have Ross Whitson on our middle school and high school staff, and Marco Gulateri. He was a state runner-up at West Jefferson. And
I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, tough as nails, and just a super good guy and coach. And Mike Ford is helping out as well. That's the son of Chris Ford, the Ohio State coach from before Russ. And we have a few other guys that pop in and help out. But
Dean Schuler down there too, helping out with the biddy.
Dean's with my youth.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dean's super solid. You know that he's
awesome guy,
a great guy and committed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
one thing. No, yeah. Go on. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
Well, I mean, it's one thing, those guys all get together. We're all dedicated to the kids and doing the program and doing things right. And, we all have a little different view. So I try to give my coaches the ability to coach. And sometimes I just get out of the way and let them do their thing.
Right. No, it's easier said than done sometimes. I know that, right? I talking with Bracken when I had him on, and I know I have this conversation with Coach Bellamy at St. Mary's is, having that balancing act that you care for the kid, but you can't care more than them sometimes, right? And Bracken brought up a story when he was going to go to that table and you like something along the lines, you can't want it more than he wants it, right? So I guess you've seen wrestling, you've seen a lot of kids. How do you balance that? Because you obviously you got to know when to push, but when a kid doesn't want it, what do you say to the kid, or how do you kind of get them motivated, or what do you tell yourself? I guess more importantly, so you're not beating your head against the wall trying to motivate them sometimes.
Yeah, I like to figure out what makes them tick, and for every wrestler, it's a little bit different. So, for Jake Ryan, it was always ice cream. So I'd always get him ice cream and go to handles and all that stuff. And then he would forget about the wrestling and he would just wrestle really hard and do really well. And for the other ones, some of them want to actually be, they want you to be stern with them. So, I try to figure out what each person wants. And then either I will sit in their corner and help them, or I'll get a coach that matches their personality and try to get it in there. But one thing I don't like to do is to go to the table and fight for our wrestlers, especially if they're not moving hard enough. Now, I might go to question a score or timing or something like that, but I very rarely go to question a call, because then I think, you give the wrestler an excuse, and you also give him to blame it on somebody, or it keeps him from pushing himself a little bit harder, because he might feel that he got a bad call or something like that and get distracted. So it's up to them to wrestle in the center of the mat as much as they can, and and push the pace and try to score if they can. And it's up to me just to guide them. I really don't want to fight the ref for them, that's for sure.
Right. It's got to pick your battles, especially with refs, and know how to approach them. Obviously, you know that.
Mhm.
Um, I was at Pursuit earlier this month, and it's pretty sharp to see what they have going on. Right, all three guys, worked under you. I'm sure you had a lot of input on that. What's your take on that? Do you keep in touch with a lot of guys that have come through Liberty still, or did they reach out for you for advice on starting that up, or what's your take on the Pursuit,
Um,
what they have going over there?
yeah, they've got something special going there, and Craig Thomas and Jake and Bracken, they're just motivated. It's great to see young motivated people that want to produce a product for wrestling and also for just physical fitness, and create an atmosphere in our environment which is conducive for people to excel at whatever they want to do, whether it be physical fitness or wrestling, or perhaps martial arts or something like that in the future. And I give them a little bit of input, and at the same time, I try to be as supportive as I can, and realize that they have different goals and views than I do of what they want to do. So if they ask me about something and want to bounce something off me, I'll tell them what I think. But at the same time, I don't know all the things that they're dealing with. So I try not to get too deep with them and just be supportive and help them if they need it.
What's this upcoming season looking like for you guys?
I think we have a pretty good December, a couple tournaments where we're going to go to Ironman, Brecksville. We'll have our tournament, and then we go to the Wadsworth, the GIT, and those are our tournaments. And then we're in a really good league, and in Central Ohio, we're in the OCC. We have Upper Arlington, Dublin Kaufman, but we also have duels with Marysville, and we have a duel with Massillon Perry and Delaware Hayes and some other really good teams. So I don't really use all my points every year. So, I mean, sometimes I'll use 15 or 16, but very rarely I'll use them all just because it's kind of, a lot of people talk about a really long season, but a lot of it's self-inflicted, really, in my opinion. It's really not as long as we think it is, but if you spend, if you go to 2-day tournaments every weekend and you never see the daylight, you're a vampire, and heck, it's going to be long. So I like to do a lot of things where we get done at noon and we're out the door through 3 good matches and we're done. So we've got a couple tries at home that where we're in that situation and we can, get everybody out by 1 o'clock where you can go have dinner with your family and then and see the daylight and, develop some vitamin D maybe.
Right. It's a long winter when you're going in early, getting out late, and in a gym for 2 days straight. So do you build in kind of like breaks within the schedule, or how kind of what's your longest layoff in the season then?
Well, we try to peak for the Ironman or Brexville tournament. Because you're not in Ironman all the time, and the Brexville's is really my favorite tournament because I've been going there since '83. It's when my high school coach took us there, and I just love that. I love the tournament. I love the competition. I love the way they run it, and so we always try to peak there, and then we try to peak again for the district tournament, maybe a state tournament. And I'm not sure if you can be at top condition all year round. You might be able to, but I try to peak twice, so maybe 6 weeks, peak on the 7th week, take a week off, and then try to do it again, maybe something like that. It just depends on how well our football team does as well.
Right. Yeah. So how's that? Are you guys pretty competitive at Liberty
Yeah,
then?
yeah, we've made the state semis last year. We've been in the regional finals quite a bit. We have a really good football team, and I got a good relationship with our football coach. His son wrestled for me all 4 years, and it's a I mean, they got a great program. I like the way he does things. It's just you know it's good. I have no problem with my boys playing football or any other sport,
Right.
and I like it. It's physical and it makes them a little aggressive, so I appreciate it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I know. When before I wrestled, St. Mary's football was pretty competitive. So Jude Roth would kind of bump back our schedule, so we didn't compete right away just because of that. It's like I don't want to put a guy out there. His thought didn't want to put a guy out there too early and get hurt and not be in condition. Like you mentioned, it was a long season, so he's like, let's just back it up a little bit and train as a team and get it going. So, um,
Yeah, I had to learn that. It took me a while to realize that. And actually, some of my better teams were probably, at Desales. I I made the mistake of overworking them,
mm,
and so I never want to lose from overworking a wrestler anymore. You know, and because if you overwork someone and they're not fresh at the end of the season, they're just not going to win.
right.
You,
I
you got
think I heard this in the MMA from MMA coach. He said, I'd rather be a little bit undertrained, a little bit overtrained, right? Once you overtrain, it's hard to
yeah,
get back on track where it's if you're a little undertrained, just if you're gonna err, right? Just not that you want to, take it off and, be too soft on them, but you spoke on schedule and yet you guys don't always compete in state duels, is that right? Or is that
no, we haven't. Since they changed the modify, but we're scheduled to do it next year. We're going to be in it.
okay? Was that kind of like you said, just didn't want to put it on the schedule, kind of just to have the
You know,
appropriate breaks and not push too hard and not peak at the right time? I guess what's the mindset change on that?
well, I kind of get a bad rap on that, and I'm not. I don't know really why, because when I was at the cells, I probably participated in the state duels, the actual finals, more than maybe anybody except for maybe Urbis, or Urbis maybe, and he's not coach anymore. Maybe Bernie and a couple other guys, but for like 13 years in a row, we were in that every year, and I liked that format. As a matter of fact, I was coaching at Westland, or student teaching at Westland, and I sat in some of the meetings when they started the original state duels, which they had at Wright State.
Right, I
And
was there.
Yeah, and I was all for it. It was great, and I enjoyed it. The only issue I had with the state duels is really that we have league meets every Thursday. We and having those dual meets on Wednesday night, turn around and go on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday. I have 4 children and a wife, and I want to stay married, and
Right.
I want to see kids, and it was just too much for me and my students and my wrestlers. It was too much for us, and but now it's going back to a style which I kind of like.
Right. Right. I think it makes sense. And one thing, I just brought up Jude Roth. One idea he had, and I don't see the drawbacks. Maybe someone can point it out, and I'm curious of your take. He had the idea, and I actually pitched it to HSA, is why not follow the football model, right? Say you have 8 duels, like you said, you do tries, and you mark 8 dual meets through the year that count towards points, and treat it like computer points in football. That way, okay, your duel comes down to beating Marysville to get that 8th spot in the state. Your
Mhm.
gym's going to be packed, right?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Kind of just follow the football model. Obviously, now the football model has changed, right? I think everybody's getting in, and I won't go off on that, but right. What's your thoughts on that? I believe you're a big proponent of the duels, right? And if
Yeah.
you build it in where these 8 are, you declare them at the beginning of the year, right? These are my 8 duels. I can do it on a Tuesday. I can do it on a Saturday, whenever. And these are my duels, right? You plug it into the computer system. It's already there for football. And then the computer spits out, here's the top 8 teams in the state based on, strength of schedule and et cetera. What's your thoughts on that?
I like that, and it also gives you stuff to follow. Like I like going to Joe Idle's website and following the football computer
Right,
point.
right.
I really enjoy it. I'm a wrestling junkie, so anything like that which would help me. I don't know if it actually helps me, but
Mhm.
it would make me be more interested in wrestling and make more fans interested in wrestling, that they could follow their teams and things like that. I think that would be a pretty good concept to enact. We just probably would have. I don't know exactly how you would keep all the points, but it's definitely a concept worth looking at for sure.
Right. Yeah, I know there's more to it than just saying here's what it is, but football is doing it week by week. I'm sure there's some kind of program we stick it in, and like I said, it could create some really exciting duels around the state. Get it streamed and get some eyeballs on the sport, and that's what people want to see, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, yes, duels are great. Last year we wrestled like 30 duels, 28 duels or something,
wow.
and I've never done that before, and that was fun. It is a lot of work trying to get the JV and the freshman guys matches, but
Right.
it worked out pretty well. I was pleased with the amount of matches and the quality we were able to get.
Good. Uh, as the weight change is going to impact your team at all? Kind of, the kind of last minute weight change. Anything going to impact you guys on that?
Yeah, I mean that's I haven't really examined that much. I'm sure it's going to impact everybody, and we always have a good amount of heavyweights because we have fairly good amount of football players that wrestle. So
Right.
I'm sure it is going to a little bit like it's going to everybody,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's going to be like devastating.
Mhm.
I was just getting used to the
Right.
new weight classes.
Right. 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 We might not sound like old guys anymore because these guys are going to be used to so many
Yes.
different weight classes, and we bring up these old weights. Yeah, it was a 105 or a 103 or whatever it is. Right now, it's like okay, these weights change.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
98.
what's that?
I was 98 twice.
Yeah, you were a little guy too. That's right. That's right. Um, so we talked about Desales, talked about Liberty, built 2, powerhouse programs, right? What would you say to a new coach starting a program, looking back, and you've got to do it twice now? Any words of wisdom to a young coach starting out a program?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be comfortable with what you are and what you can do and what your strengths are. And so I think it's good if you can, assess yourself and then figure out, where you're weak, and then try to hire people that can fill in where you're weak and support you. If you don't hire somebody who has the same strengths as you or the same personalities as you. And then I have a top-down approach as opposed to, a bottom-up approach. So a top-down approach, when I took over at Liberty, I probably put like 90% of my efforts into the high school team. And, we were dead last my first year, I think, in the district service, or before I got there. And then 4 years later, we were district champs, and that's when it was a combined district. And we did that all with our middle school kids. We didn't have one middle school state placer or anything on that team. As a matter of fact, we had some guys that were losing middle school wrestlers and didn't have a winning record in middle school. And one of those guys was our first district champion, and that was Craig Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
He helps run Pursuit.
Right.
And, he is a
sharp guy, man.
Sharp guy, and he's a great teacher. And he's a guy that learned how to be good through just, he's a student of the game. So I would take a top-down approach where I would invest heavily in my high school team and then let it trickle down. A lot of people invest heavily in their youth, which is not wrong, but the reality of it is it takes a decade to see the fruits of your youth. Mm-hmm. So unless you're going to stay consistent with your youth coaches, which is very hard to do, you're going to get a turnover in youth coaches and philosophy every 3 or 4 years, because most of the youth coaches only do it for their children, and after 3 or 4 years they move on. Right. So there's no continuity. So I took the top-down approach, and then I got some really good youth coaches to stick with me for quite a while. And the Fitzpatrick brothers have all been on my team. Their dad was our youth coach for the longest time, and he did a really great job. So I take that top-down approach, and then as the high school gets a little bit better, it starts trickling down, and then you kind of work on it, because your youth and your parents and your community, they're going to want to be a part of a winning high school team. If your high school team's never a winning high school team, you're not going to get the best people interested and the best athletes and things like that. So I spent a lot of time on that, and then it just kind of kept growing. And it's the parallels between, if you look on the winners, the champion board at Desales and our top 10 board at Liberty, the parallels are eerily similar. They're almost identical, except we got third twice instead of two runner-ups. And but our top 10 finishes is just, it's almost identical. And I would take the top-down approach, but I mean, that depends on how old that new coach is and what he wants to do. I think most people take that bottom-up approach, and they just lose youth kids all over the place, because when those youth kids get good, most of them aren't going to stick around. They're going to gravitate towards
for other places that are winning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See it all the time. Right. Even like that with Central Ohio, right? From my coaching experience, I feel like it's on the rise, right? Central Ohio, there's a lot of clubs, a lot of programs, coming up, right? Kaufman did real well this year. What do you attribute that kind of shift from? Or do you agree with that? Or do you kind of,
Yeah, I do agree with that. I used to run a club at Desales. It was PWC, the Power Wrestling Club.
Okay.
I had 150 wrestlers in that club.
Oh, holy cow.
Yeah. And most people don't know that I ran two shifts of 75.
Holy cow.
And then when I went to Liberty, I kind of dropped that. The shift is Tom Ryan and Ohio State Wrestling, and just all the good clinicians and all the people that are being put out there. There's just so many good places to go to, and people can take advantage of it, and they can tailor their training to what they need or what they want. Mm-hmm. And the options there are really good, and Central Ohio is so easy to get around. The 270 belt, you can get anywhere really quick. So, you know, and that's hard to do. I would say in Cleveland, sometimes it seems like it's 45 minutes to get anywhere there. And in Columbus, it's 20 minutes to get anywhere from one side of the town to the other. And it's just, you know, there's just so many good people. You know, Ron's been, you know, pumping out tons of good guys, and
Right.
and pursued, and you know, you got Ohio State, and you got, you know, places all over.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that. You know, I don't know if it's so much that, you know, it's just more competition in Division One.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was at Desales, you know, Division One in Central Ohio, it wasn't really as strong as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it just wasn't. And at Desales, we would regularly beat the district champions, pretty good.
Right. And for those that don't know, you guys were D2, but you were the team in Columbus, right? I mean,
Yeah. And then, you know, I don't know. I think when I went to Liberty, and I took all the kids that they said you can't win with, Mark, you know,
right.
and you're never gonna be able to win there because the kids they're too soft, they're too rich, they don't want to work hard, all those types of things. And then I was able to develop them to a point where, you know, they were beating the better kids. And then I think people started started upping the ante and being a little bit more competitive. And I you know, I think that's a little bit of a part of it. And because people realize you can do it you can beat the St. Ed's, you can beat these guys. And so it's just a lot more competitive. Plus, we got some great coaches in Central Ohio too right now.
Right. Right. A lot of factors go into, right. A lot of factors have changed, right, over the years there, but definitely on the upswing. It's awesome to see too. So how much longer are you coaching? You know, some guys your age are kind of, you know, calling it, you're not old by any means. I'm not calling you old, you know, but you've been at it, right, for a while, right? What, you know, I talked to George Bergman, you know, he's in our conference. We talked about Oak Harbor off air, and, you know, he says, he's like, I'm going to stop doing it when I stop having fun. I'm having fun coaching. I don't plan on stopping until I stop having fun. That's his answer. He's like, I get the question all the time, when are you going to be done? And, you know, very similar program to you, right? He puts guys at D1, D2, D3 level. You know, you have guys every year going to the next level. You know, what's that look like for you? Have you had that conversation with yourself, or, you know, or is it just 1 year at a time, or what's that look like?
I've had that conversation a few times over the last 5 or 6 years. And, you know, sometimes it's when I had really good teams on paper and we did really well, but I felt more like I was trying to manage things instead of coaching. And sometimes that's not fun. And sometimes when you have a really good team, there's a lot of egos on there, and it's, you know, it's difficult to balance.
Right.
But after last year, you know, most people said they had a tough year with wrestling. It was a great year for us, and it really rejuvenated me. And it wrestling season helped me a whole lot last year. And if we weren't able to wrestle, I was considering, like, I'm just not going to do it anymore, because. And then they said we could wrestle, and I was just relieved, and I pumped a lot of emphasis and time into it, and we had a great year. We were really close to having 3 guys in the finals, and, you know, in a kind of a rebuilding year. And I just got motivated again, and I love doing it. I've got my program back to where I want it to be, and where it's really fun for me again. And, you know, I got a great staff, and I just love being around those guys. So I think I'm going to do it for a while, until I get somebody who's good enough, not necessarily good enough, but has some of the same coaching values that I do, and is also a teacher. I think it's really important to have a teacher in our building, and with our community and stuff like that. So I need to get somebody in the building that can do that. But I think I'm going to do for quite a while until I can,
Right. So
you
so
know.
what was it about last year? Was it because it was supposed to be a rebuilding year and the guys overachieved, or was it because the whole COVID situation with state being pulled away that you're like, wow, this is how much it means to me, and now we get to do it, kind of change perspective. But I guess what was that last year that kind of rejuvenated you?
I don't I don't really know what it was. It's just that I was I made my mind up to dump a lot into these guys, and I made my mind up not to let anybody bring me down or bring my team down.
Mhm.
And I just had that attitude all year, and I pushed the guys really hard and in the right direction. And I was just really emphasis and pushed on learning so much that I didn't worry about too many things. I had a great coaching experience last year. And I think it's just, I got stubborn and made my mind up that I'm going to do it besides what everybody else says we're going to do it.
Nice, nice. No, I think the whole wrestling community, at least here in Ohio, right? We kind of, a lot of us share that, right? Were we on, were we off? And I think a lot of people got excited about doing it, and excited to be back at the shot, right? This coming year, kind of, yeah, that's awesome for the kids, right? I mean, last year, we were lucky to get on the map. Being at the shot, man, it's a whole different experience, right? As you know. Um, going through COVID as a coach, and you've been around it for a while, any long-term changes you see for the better or worse, from the whole COVID, kind of, like, obviously, like you said, you had more duels last year, do you see it changing to some, different scheduling for some coaches, or, any long-term impact changes that you see that could be, maybe a silver lining benefit from COVID?
Yeah, as wrestling coaches, most of us are pretty stubborn and
Yeah.
hard headed.
Right.
So I think eventually we're going to go back into our patterns where we feel most comfortable, and hopefully we can get a few things different that work for our program and then incorporate those. So it might be, maybe hopefully we do more duels, or it might be now we finally understand the emphasis of layering up our system so that our younger wrestlers get enough matches too, and get to wrestle in front of parents and things like that. So not sending a JV wrestler to or a freshman wrestler to a tournament every Saturday and then expecting those guys to come back out the next year.
Mhm.
So maybe I think that our lower levels would probably be a little bit more benefit from it, I think.
Okay. Cool.
So I want to mention the 2019 Ohio State Coaches Clinic, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in 2019, the Coaches Clinic, J Rob was there, and I got there about 45 minutes early, and he was down on the floor sitting at a table by himself. And so, one of my philosophies is really to learn.
Mhm.
So our district philosophy is to facilitate maximum learning. And so I want to facilitate maximum learning for wrestling when I'm coaching.
Mhm.
And so I went down to J Rob, and I asked J Rob, I started talking to him a little bit, and he pretty much gave it to me for 45 minutes about my philosophy. And if I don't have my philosophy intact and my wrestlers don't know it, then I'm wasting my time. So he kind of ripped me for 45 minutes, and I kind of took it, and I realized, yeah, I have to stress my philosophy a lot better to my wrestlers. And then, so, I mean, from that point on, it was all about what my philosophy is: to learn. I want my guys to learn how to wrestle, learn how to compete. And it's all these behaviors are learned, and they can be changed. And so that's my philosophy that I want to stress to my wrestlers. And I didn't get that from J Rob. He just
Kind of
he just
revealed that to you, kind of made you aware, okay, here's what I need to reveal to my team, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, he did that, not a really nice way, but it worked.
So day one, what do you say? Day one of practice, this fall, you have the first day of practice with the team, right? What do you say so they know that this is what my philosophy is? What do you exactly say to them?
Well, I'll bring them in, and then I'll have them rate themselves in like three categories. How are you athletically? How are you academically? And then how are you socially? And then rate yourself, and then let's figure out ways which we can make ourselves better in those situations. So let's do some things which we can learn to if you rate yourself a 7 as a wrestler, let's learn how to be a 7.5 or an 8, and let's get some measurable tasks and goals that we can accomplish throughout the course of the season. Maybe it might be a daily goal or a weekly goal or a monthly goal, but things that you can measure yourself on and assess yourself, to make sure that you're learning and improving, and then also being real with yourself. And we'll probably do that 2 or 3 times a season, really.
So you do it first day, beginning of the season, then you kind of, I'm assuming mid-season, then kind of right before postseason, or what do those 3 times look like?
Yeah, those are the 3 times. And you know what I like to do with that? I like to keep those all together, and then I give them to any of my seniors that, I staple them all together, and then they have like 12 or 15, and I give them to them in their graduation
Oh,
if they
that's cool.
if they make it the whole time.
Yeah. No, that's cool. No, it probably pretty exciting to see their path sometimes, you and for them to look back, and hopefully they hang on and kind of learn from that and look back instead of just throwing it aside. I'm sure they do. Check that out. Especially if they're sticking through the program, right? It's sticking through 4 years of a D1, program. It's not as easy as some people think, but sounds like you guys got a great thing going on there. Obviously, your nice room, right? We didn't even mention your room, man. Jeez, oh, Pete's, right? It's
Yeah,
still like one of the biggest in the country, or what? I mean, what, it fits
I
1,000
think
people?
yeah, I don't know if anybody has a bigger one. On a side note, we had 14 seniors last year, and the year before we had 13. And
Wow.
so I really keep guys around, and everyone's a part of the team. But our room is like it's phenomenal. But you know, I had 55 guys on the team at Desales, and we had 2 stinking little tiny mats and a 8-foot ceiling. So just because you got a good team, a good room, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be filled with the quality type of people if you don't bring them, develop and bring people in and attract the best middle school wrestlers that you can from Hyatts and Liberty and other places like that.
Right. No, 100%. So, anything else you have for us, Coach? You shared the J Rob story. Anything other stories you have from your days of wrestling or your days of coaching or some of the athletes you've coached? Any stories you have?
Yeah, um, you know, I had a puritanical work ethic, and I kind of worked myself out of a couple state titles. Now, if I had to pick somebody to lose to, it would be Eric Burnett. I have a lot of respect for him, and I have no qualms losing to that guy. He's just great.
Did
But
we just had
but
him
I
on?
also,
I don't know if you No, we just had him on. I don't know if you know that or not.
yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of read
Well,
the Brakeman report, and he mentioned how he wasn't even in it his freshman year. So
yeah, he's a super O, like
yeah,
I mean,
so what did your dad give that name to him, Super O? Because he had the O on his singlet, right?
yep. My dad gave him that name, Super O. He's like the kryptonite. It's just my dad didn't know too much about wrestling. He only said a couple things, but he could really get me fired up and motivated really, really well. And I worked so hard, and then I I kind of outworked myself. I got tired at the end, and I didn't stop doing that until I was a senior. And then I went to college. And I was at college one time. I hurt my back my senior year, and I thought my career was over. And I laid on the couch after Thanksgiving for about a month, close to a month, anyways.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden my back was okay. And the next thing I know, I trained for 3 days, and I went to the Midlands, and I smashed everybody at the Midlands, and I had brands in the finals.
Oh
So I
wow.
had, yeah. and I had Tommy Brands in the finals, and I was beating him 3-2 or 4-3 or something like that, all up until like 20 seconds left in the period, and he ended up taking me down and beat me by a point or two.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and I was really cutting a lot of weight, and then I'm leaving Northwestern feeling kind of good about myself, and then out on the football field, I hear this guy screaming real loud and running, and it's Tommy Brands doing sprints. It's 15 degrees out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to go to another weight class, because this guy, he would cut his arm off to beat anybody. It's so tough. It's and he ended up, I think he won it that year and a couple other years, but he was just a fierce competitor. And that was one thing I really remember that time, is like, man, that guy really, really, really wants it, and I just would have to up my game, or it's just, he was just tough to beat, and it was too difficult. He's just too good. He's a gold medalist, he's just a little bit better.
I mean, yeah, elite, right? Like you said, gold medalist, he maniac, right? And sometimes you give it your all, give it your best, and that's all you can do, though, right? You went out there, gave it your all, right? Battled through injury, and coming up short to him, so close. I mean, sometimes it sucks, but it's what it is, right?
And then after that, I was working out 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks later, he smokes me like by 15. So I'm like, I do better against him when I'm fresh and I'm not killing myself. But I mean, 4 times a day isn't gonna build much muscle, and eventually will wear you down. So I kind of changed my philosophy because of situations like that. So I learned from it.
And you took 4th at NCAAs twice, right?
Yeah.
Who were some of the other guys you wrestled, or I guess talk about that a little bit, or if you want to.
Another guy I always used to wrestle, I had some really close matches with him. 2 of the guys, which I think were equally as good. One was the Fisher guy from Michigan, John Fisher. So I had some slugfests with him. I lost like 14-13, 17-15, or something like that. And then the other guy who I wrestled, which I think was probably one of the best guys talent-wise, was David Zuniga. And Zuniga, he made the Greco team for 92, I think. So in my weight class, both the Greco and freestyle guys were in the Big Ten in my weight class. So I wrestled those 2 guys along with Brands. I wrestled Brands pretty close a couple times, and then he just kind of mauled me a bunch of other times. So it was, he was just unbelievable. What those guys, the guys I stand out like really high level. John Fisher might have been, he was like a miniature Burroughs with his double and stuff. He was just tough. I think he was in when he was 34 or something, he was finished runner up at the U.S. Nationals. So he was still for quite a long time.
Holy cow! Oh my goodness. So who are some of the guys on your team you trained with at Ohio State? I know you mentioned Coleman and Randall, but who are some of your teammates there that kind of
Adam DeSabato, Ken Ramsey, Mike Schick, and Dave Range.
Okay.
Right around, those were the guys that were starters. And I like to, those guys are all great partners and tough as nails, and I really enjoyed rolling around and wrestling with those guys. Just very good, and just good, really, really good wrestling partners. I appreciate them.
Right. Yeah, like I said, going back to Burnett, Eric Burnett, just had him on. Actually, Bracken shared a picture on Twitter of you guys coaching, I think the original Pursuit room. I mean, that's just how cool. I think, obviously, Ohio is one of the top, states in the country, obviously alongside PA, but it boils down to the coaches, right? Just that type of atmosphere, having you guys in a room together and sharing techniques, sharing stories. It's what sets Ohio apart, right? And how cool is that? You guys still, you don't have to coach anymore, but obviously you're giving back and doing those things, at Pursuit or off, when you don't have to be doing things. And I think that's just just how awesome Ohio wrestling is. And I just want to say thank you for all you've done. You know what I mean? I know you've impacted a lot of guys in your time, and, anyone, I haven't had the pleasure to be around you coaching, but, I know there's a lot of guys that, have a lot of respect for you. And, I'm glad to finally get you on here. Like I said, people have been asking. Bracken is the number one, I think, in that club, but, or the president of that club, but getting you on here. But, it's just pretty cool. I guess what do you say when you're around Bernie? Being, you know, I believe it was that Pursuit, right? Were you guys both showing technique together? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we just talk about, well, his son was there working out. We just talk about coaching, how much we like doing it, enjoying it, and helping people. When it boils down to it, a lot of coaches, I don't know if they understand, but we're on the same team. We're doing the same thing, and although we're competitors, out after the match is over, it's, there's no sense in being angry at another guy because he beat you or whatever. It's just the kids, and a lot of times kids get over a lot earlier than coaches do a lot. So I respect Bernie a ton, as I do a lot of other coaches, and we just talk about coaching and life and things like that, and and we talk about he beat me in high school, but then you did better than me in college, Mark. And it's going to go back and forth a little bit, but what a great guy. He's
Right.
super good.
Right. Him and Scotty, man, super, super blessed to have them as coaches here in Ohio. That's for certain, as you as well. But no, super cool to have that around. Talking with some guys from Michigan, they say that's exactly what sets Ohio apart. There's a coach coaching at a clinic, and there's other high school coaches in the room learning from them. And that's just a cool aspect of Ohio wrestling, I think. So, any other stories? You told J Rob, you've shared a brands, any other stories you have?
Well, I've done a couple clinics, and one clinic I helped somebody do down in Southwest Ohio, and he had a really, really big name guy come in, and he asked me to do a filler for 1 hour. So the guy comes in and shows a lot of great stuff, and then he goes and takes a break, and I fill in for an hour, and he comes back and he goes, "What do you do?" I go, "I'm a high school coach and a teacher." He goes, "They hired the wrong guy. You should have been doing this clinic." And I was like, "Well, thank you, but I really appreciate the stuff that you're doing, and I'd rather watch you do it than me have to do it. So it's your turn to get back out there and finish the next 2 hours." and it's just I learn a lot going to these clinics. Not so much doing and things, but listening. Coach Ryan's had some really good people in, and I remember when Rob Cole came in, and I sat down watching him do. He covered Wizards for about 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
And most people left, and I was trying to sit there and pick up a lot of the fine points of how he does it. And like Dave Crowley had, I think that's the guy's name, a couple years ago. I really appreciated him. And also there was a guy, his name's Chris Willards, and Tom had him in. I like the clinics because I learned there, but the one thing I kind of got off of him is I started doing this senior father singlet giveaway night.
Okay.
And so I have all the seniors in my program come in, and the dads will get up there and tell a story about their son, and then give them their singlets. And it's my favorite day of the year. It's so phenomenal. And the reality of it is, a lot of times dads don't tell their kids they love them. And when a father tells his son he loves him, and the son knows it, it means a lot. And it's a lot more important than winning that state title. And I picked that up from having a relationship with a guy at a clinic. So when you go to clinics, I like to keep my ears open, and I like to learn, and I spend a lot of time doing it, trying to be better. And I like to ask questions a lot to try to get better from people. So it's just Tom Ryan's been a force a force in Ohio wrestling. It's just, and he's just a good dude. And I'm just so happy that he's there and I can be around him and pull stuff from him. And he does great clinics. It's just I like to learn from people, I guess. In the end, Jared.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah, me as well. I mean, that's I guess why I'm doing this podcast. I'm trying to learn, right? There's a lot of guys out there. I want to hear their story, and also kind of learn, from them, what they're doing as part of the program. So, I appreciate you taking time tonight. It's
Thank you.
I know I've seen you in passing, and over the years, like I said, I remember your guys beating up on our guys back in the '90s. I think of the Midwest Classic back in the day. I think the tournament was, but finally nice to finally just sit and chat. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Coach.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. It's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks. It's time to start planning for next season's tournaments. Be sure you have Smitty's corner rugs on your mats to protect them and keep them clean. Get a hold of him directly at Smitty43952@gmail.com. If you have a tournament, it's the way to go. It creates a custom coach's box so your tournament runs efficiently and keeps the mats clean since they use a top spray MRSA killer.
Anyway, I was just saying to you there, how I've got corner, rug inventory. 'Tis the season.
It's the season right now.